Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today we have kind of a special type of an episode. We've got Brenner Newman out of Stevensville, Texas, in West Texas. And Brenner, you can correct me on that here in a minute. But we've got Chris Rowe of Rowe Hunting Resources. Chris has been a valued podcast contributor and guest here on my podcast. And Brenner's going to be doing some elk hunting in Colorado and had a bunch of elk questions. So I thought the best thing to do would be to get Chris on the phone and tag team some of these questions and try and bring as much value as we can. So Chris, how you doing? I appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, good. It's perfect because this is one of those days where I just have to get a bunch of office stuff done. So I was sitting there working on some elk content anyway, so I think this will work perfect. But no, I've been doing well. I haven't been fishing at all like someone else I know, but
you know, our rivers, Chris, we had such high winter snowfall and cold spring here that to be honest with you, the Roaring Fork Valley here where I'm at, kind of between Glenwood and Aspen here in Colorado, the Roaring Fork, which normally I would have been fishing for a good month by now, I haven't even floated, and it's probably about this week, just about time to start floating it. So I'm sure we're going to talk about that here in some future questions that Brenner has, but it's great to have you on. I also want to let everybody know, and Chris, have you talked briefly about it? I noticed on Instagram that within the Rowe Hunting Resources elk module, you have started your own podcast. So I'm excited about that. I'm happy for you. I'm as a elk module subscriber myself. It's super sweet to see that. But tell the listeners a little bit about what you're doing.
Yeah. So everybody, well, I guess just with the popularity of podcasts, a lot of people have started to really enjoy more of those long form type discussions where you can just kind of dive into issues and maybe have a little bit more off the cuff or a little bit more unscripted style conversations. So we still are going to have the same structured videos in the elk module and the rest of the website that we always have had, but I just figured, you know, there's some of these topics that just lend themselves to a little bit more of a free-form discussion. So we just kind of started adding that. It's going to still be right now. It's still going to stay housed in there under the website for now, but it just gives an opportunity to have a little bit more long-form discussion on some different topics. And the reality too is it just makes it a lot easier for me because, you know, just like we've talked about before, we can have a conversation. I can video it, I can record the audio, and I can post it, and I don't have to spend a lot of time editing stuff and you know, just really working the video and making something visually. It could just be a discussion, record it, rock and roll, just get her done, post it, and just get it up there and get the content up there, because with all the projects I've got going on here, with all my habitat stuff that I'm doing, the deer stuff I'm doing, I'm just finding my schedule and my days are so dang tight. I just have failed to have as much time as I used to. So this just gives me another opportunity to get the content out there, talk to folks, get good information out there, but in a different format that people seem to enjoy. So
that's awesome. I look forward to seeing how that goes. I know it will. People will really enjoy it. I've been enjoying your Instagram live videos where, you know, now on Instagram we can do more than a minute-long video. So, you know, a lot of your updates and, you know, just your good content and audio, I appreciate that. So I look forward to seeing the progression of that. Brenner, I'm gonna let you have the stage here and start asking questions, but I want you to tell the audience a little bit about yourself and Chris and I so we can kind of get to know you, and then dive right into your questions, and let's try and get through as many of them as we can.
All righty, that sounds perfect. Well, everybody, my name is Brenner Newman. I'm here from Dallas, Texas. I'm actually out here just west of Fort Worth today. I've been in Stephenville. My girlfriend lives out here, and then also I have a deer lease just north of town, about 40, 45 miles north of here in a small town called Strawn. So I was actually out here this weekend. It was my last weekend out there. I had to get everything moved out off the land. I've done this. Kind of just freed up my time to focus more on elk hunting. I've been chasing whitetails my entire life, and I absolutely love it. I'll still be doing that, but just not as much as as I have been in the past. Like been trying to get into this elk hunting, and it's really just it's changed how I do a lot of things now. I've been talking a lot to the hunting industry, like yourself, been asking you questions, and it's just awesome to be able to shoot you questions anytime and always get good feedback. And I've been like I said, I've been talking to several different people, and always getting honest reviews and honest questions back or answers back has been a big help to me. And so that's kind of why I built this thing and shot you all these questions, because I'm just looking for more help, looking for more answers. So that's why I'm here.
That sounds great, Brenner. I got your list of questions this morning about 30 minutes ago, and I've had a chance just to briefly look over them. But feel free to just dive in, and Chris and I will do our best to answer these up the best we can.
That sounds good. All right, well, let's start out with just the gear questions. As far as going on an extended day elk hunt in September, as far as what gear will you be wearing and what gear will you be bringing with you, as far as your bow and arrow setup, your KUIU gear that you'll be wearing, obviously, and then your optics. I feel like that would be a good place to start.
Yeah, definitely. Just so I get a sense of what you're trying to tackle in Colorado this year, I sense that you're just going to come out and do an over-the-counter Colorado elk hunt, and you're going to do, when you say extended stay, you're going to try and stay in the backcountry for a handful of days. Is that what you're going for?
Yes, sir. I'll actually be heading out there August 30th, and I planned on staying out there for till September 20th, September 23rd. I have that off. So that's kind of where my time frame is.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I think Chris is going to be able to really bring a lot of value on this particular question. Most of my elk hunting, being a guide in Arizona for 20 years for elk, most of my guiding was out of a tent camp or out of a travel trailer camp. And Chris has done a fair share of that as well, but Chris has also done quite a bit of backcountry extended stay, so I'm looking forward to hearing Chris's answer. As far as gear that I could recommend for you mentioned in there the KUIU lineup. I'm a big fan of the Tiburon pant, which has the dot air technology, which on those warmer Colorado days, probably earlier in the season, when you're going to be physically exerting yourself quite a bit, a pant that's very breathable. To me, with side vents would be good. Also, pants that you could look at would be the new Kutana pant, potentially the Attack pant, and potentially the Pro pant. If I had to choose one, I would probably go with the Tiburon on the warmer days, and then I would probably lean towards the Kutana maybe as the month wears on. I think one of the things that you have to think about is your rain gear. Specifically, if you're talking about the KUIU line, I would look at the Chugach, which is probably the lightest weight rain gear out of the line with the most durability. If you want to go the next step up of durability, you could look at the Kutana rain gear, and then of course the heaviest, which I probably wouldn't recommend. I think it's probably a bit too heavy for what you're talking about, would be the Yukon, but I would probably go with the Chugach or the Kutana. Now, as far as a shirt for gear, I'm real high on the new 145 Merino hoodie. I really like that hoodie for a couple reasons. One, protection a little bit from bugs buzzing around your ears, and two, sun protection, and I guess three, having that hood to have a little bit of concealment. I've been wearing it a lot this summer, hiking and fishing and such, and I really like that new edition of that 145 Merino. If Merino next to skin isn't your thing, then, I would potentially look at like the 118 Peloton synthetic shirt from KUIU. And then if you're talking mid layers, probably a Peloton 97, potentially a Peloton 240 hoodie would be a good thing. Diving right into backpacks, the new Pro Pack 6000, I really like from KUIU. I've been wearing it this summer. Historically, I've been wearing an Ultra 7000 or an Icon Pro 7200. Depending on how far you're going to go, Brenner, if you're going to have, any support or, anybody with you, or if you're planning to just go, 4 or 5 day stints and then come out, dictates probably the cubic inch of backpack that you're taking. I would also go with the Mountain Star 2-person tent. It's super light, very durable, very user-friendly tent. And then I would consider taking trekking poles. You sound like a young guy, but, if you're going to be killing an elk and getting it in the backcountry, having the ability to have trekking poles and be able to use those as support coming out, heavy, it's just going to save the wear and tear on your knees. That's kind of what jumps out at me as far as bow. I'm still shooting a Impulse, Elite Impulse 34. I shoot a slider, a fixed pin slider sight. Shooting gold tip arrows. I think they're 400 grain, right at 395 or 400 grain arrows. And the last elk hunt I went on, I actually used the Gravedigger mechanical broadhead. So I know the arguments both between fixed and mechanical, and I just felt like I was shooting the mechanical broadhead and the arrow was flying so much better that was a better fit for me. So, Chris, why don't you talk a little bit about your gear, and then if Brenner has any questions, he can follow up with that.
Yeah, well, let me ask Brenner real quick. Do you know what elevation you're going to be hunting at? Or
yes, sir. Anywhere from I've been looking at around between really 8 and 11,000, 8 and 11,500. Starting out for sure, it'll be around 85, between 85 and 9.
Okay, and how far in are you going?
So I'll be hunting this a couple different ways. I'll be, base camping, so camping from my truck, and as well as going in, probably, I won't ever go in more than 3 or 4 days at a time. I don't ever plan on, staying out there for 5, 6, 7 nights. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Okay. Then, that helps. And, then the clothing, the only thing I'll add with the clothing is just make sure your system allows you to layer. There's going to be some mornings that are going to be really cold and probably damp with dew and everything else. And then middle of the part of the day and the afternoons are going to be hotter than the hubs of blue blazes. So you're going to want to strip down. So have the ability on your clothing to be able to layer. And given the fact that you're going to be out there for that long, in a kind of you're talking about high elevation for some of it, mid elevation for a lot of it, you probably can have a lot more gear in your truck just to give you some versatility. You may not have to take it with you on a particular occasion, but if you're only going to go in for a couple days, it gives you the flexibility to bring more, have it in the truck, and then you can just come back out and just get new or different gear if you feel that you need it. The other thing that Jay, I will say, your boots. Make sure you've got a set of boots that are going to work for you. Given the fact that you're talking about that elevation range, I don't think you're going to need a really heavy-duty mountaineering boot, but you're going to need a boot that gives you a lot of good support, that you're going to be able to walk some miles in on, very steep terrain, and be comfortable and not get blisters and not wear your feet out. So make sure you spend your time on getting some boots now, so that way they're ready to rock and roll as you get ready to go in.
And Chris, could I add something to that? Brenner, on those boots, and curious Chris's thoughts as well, it might not be bad to have 2 different boots so that if you've worn worn a pair for a handful of days and they're, you know, a little bit wet inside, you can go ahead and switch to a dry pair of boots, let the other ones air out, let them dry out. You know, I just think having 2 boots in a rotation is always good for your feet, just to switch it up just a little bit. And, you know, potentially having the ability to camp out of your truck and be able to move around and be mobile. When Chris is talking about bringing that gear, bring extra gear in your truck, I think that's a great advice. But also, I would put them in some sort of action packers or some sort of, you know, plastic totes, so that, you know, you can keep that stuff separate, so the gear that you've used and that's dirty and stinky can, you know, you can keep in a certain tote, and you can kind of move the stuff around as you clean it, and it also helps you keep stay organized. One tip you might throw in there too is when you get to the location where you're going to be hunting, you know, if there's pine trees or spruce trees or what have you, you can get a little of that and put it in those plastic totes. And I just feel like that always gives, you know, takes any sort of, you know, I already use unscented soap, but if you can put some of that natural smelling stuff in those totes, it helps. I know Chris does it some too. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, the only other thing I was going to say is if you're going to be bouncing back and forth between the truck and going on like these just short excursions, for your shelter, it's up to you on what you want to do, and we'll see what this fall does. These past couple of falls have had a lot of rain across Colorado in a lot of areas. I've probably worn my rain gear more these past 2 elk seasons than I have combined the rest, you know, my previous life combined. So it's been wet these past couple falls. So your rain gear is going to be important, but also your shelter, in that if you're not going to be going, if you're going to be going, you know, miles and miles and miles back in somewhere, then you're going to want to choose a shelter that is going to be lightweight, just to kind of save your back and not really blow you out. But if you're only going to go in a few miles, just get yourself a good shelter that is going to keep you dry and it's going to keep you comfortable. Everybody's going to have a little bit of a different preference. You know, Sil Nylon, the floorless shelters and all that type of stuff is really great for weight savings, but Sil Nylon for me is extremely loud, and I'm a light sleeper, and so I can't really do well in it. So I just go ahead and carry a 3-season tent with me wherever I go. If I backpack in, I will purposefully carry a little extra weight, just because it's a quieter tent. It keeps me dry, it keeps the critters out, it keeps the bugs out. I don't know, I prefer it. So it all depends on what you want to do. But if you're going to only be going in a little ways for a few days at a time, I think you've got some flexibility on what shelters that you want to bring with you. But just make sure it's going to keep you dry, because if we get a wet fall again, that can get miserable real quick. But yeah, Jade's right. Having multiple pair of boots goes a long way. What is your
Chris,
current?
Can I step in here for a second? Brenner, I'm going to have you pull that off of your truck phone and hold it up to your ear. We're getting some feedback that's not good for the recording. So just pull it off and put it up to your ear or on speaker, and the feedback won't be as bad.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Perfect. That's a lot better.
Can you hear me better?
Chris.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah. So you're a whitetail hunter now. What is your, just the real broad strokes? I don't care about the brand of bow, but what poundage are you using? What arrow length are you having, and what's your arrow weight?
So that's funny you ask. I'm shooting a Expedition Excursion 2018 bow. I'm shooting I met this guy, Neil Emick, actually, and on Facebook. He's in Colorado Springs. He's actually an outfitter himself, and he's building my arrows for me right now. There's some elites, and I got some 125 grain iron will broadheads. Arrow weight is 535, somewhere right around in there.
Okay.
And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. But I'll be actually receiving those arrows this week.
All right. So yeah, that's a good head, and so you're going to be leaning more towards a heavier. That's about what I'm running. So you're not going to have an issue with penetration. So all right, that's what I want. That was the number one issue that I have, that I can see sometimes when whitetail hunters come out. A lot of time, I'm literally I just got done doing a video on broadhead discussion. A lot of whitetail guys, I think, get themselves tripped up in the fact that they're normally trying to go for speed. They've got lightweight arrows, and they're throwing big honking expandables, and they end up running into issues with penetration. So if you're not going to deal, you've got you're going to be just fine on that. So,
yes, sir. Okay, so as far as another question, coming from lower elevations to higher elevations, like coming from out of state, obviously, what are some good ways to prepare for that?
Before I answer that, Brenner, one thing I thought of too is Chris brings up a good point of it being pretty wet the last couple of falls. I would have a pair of gaiters. A lot of the gaiters that I would be wearing would be for the hikes in and the hikes out, and you may not necessarily be wearing them at the time you shoot your bull, but getting in and out of the country and doing a lot of your traversing up to your high country spots and what have you, if it's wet, gaiters will go a long way in preventing moisture to get down in your boots. So that's something to think about. One thing you talk about, you're coming from low elevation going to high elevation. And I don't think there's anything that you can really simulate that elevation. But one thing I think you can do is, and Chris, I'm curious your thoughts on this. It's one thing to, go on hikes and go on walks and wear your backpack and what have you. But I think at this point it may be a little too late because we're so close to season. But for those out there listening, potentially for training for next year's season and something to have in the back of their mind is when you're hunting this vertical country, in my opinion, your quads, your legs need to be very, very strong. So, things like Stairmaster, things like, doing, squats and leg presses and getting those leg muscles in as good a shape and as strong as possible. I know when I went on the 2 Dall sheep hunts last summer, the one thing I came back thinking was, I did a ton of hiking. I did a ton of hiking with the backpack, but some of that vertical country requires, just one step, 1 foot in front of the other, just one step at a time, but straight up. And that's where you really need the strength in your legs. As far as conditioning your lungs or conditioning yourself to get used to the altitude, I don't think there's a way to do that, just to simulate that. So, I would work out and be doing, above and beyond running. I would be running, I would be hiking, I would be carrying your pack, I would be shooting with your pack. And then if altitude has been a problem for you, there are some supplements that, seem to work, some better than others. So if that's something you're worried about, I would look into some of those potential supplements for altitude sickness and kind of be prepared for that. The other thing you can do is make sure you drink a lot of water, because coming from a low altitude to a high altitude, you want to make sure you don't get dehydrated.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, you really can't do anything to simulate the elevation. All you can say is, like you said, stay hydrated, and whatever your lung capacity is now, I mean, always just try to maximize your lung capacity and how much you can breathe. But I will second that you spend some time with your backpack hiking, if nothing else, because yes, and I agree with everything that Jay just said, but I think another part that some people get fatigued on is they're just not, there's other muscles in your lower back and your shoulders and neck. I mean, spend some time in your backpack starting now, so you know how it fits, you know how it rides, you know how the weight feels, and you can start getting all of your muscles starting to condition on, okay, I'm carrying this, whether it's 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 50 pounds, 80 pounds, I vary it. I just basically roll a dice and vary it depending on, so it's always kind of a little bit of random, so I don't get locked into the same weight every day. But, spend some time in your backpack, and the one thing I do like, the fact that what you said about where you're going to be, I think it's going to be very important for you. And my recommendation, not knowing where you're going to be where you're going to be hunting, my recommendation would be, if you have a variety of areas to choose from, when you get to Colorado, start low. Just at least for maybe that first, 5 days or a week or whatever, below 10,000 feet. Let yourself kind of start to get acclimated a little bit. But if you just go from Texas and go straight in, you're like, I'm going to go camp at 11,000 feet and go in, man, you may end up sapping yourself a little bit quicker, and then the rest of your hunt is going to suffer. Get here, camp below 10,000 feet for a few days, start hiking, walking at below 10,000 feet, get your legs under you, and then make those excursions above 10,000 feet on your hunts, or maybe camp a day or two. I think it'll give you some longevity of your entire season and not set yourself up for failure right off the beginning.
Yes, sir, absolutely. I think that's one of the things that hurt me last year. Is I think we started way too high in elevation, and by the time we got there, that last year was the first time of any of me and my friends, group of 6 of us, went out there, and we made that brutal mistake of having heavy packs on, and going too far and camping at, I think we camped at like 10.5, almost at 11, way too high. So one of those mistakes that we definitely learned from last year.
Nice. Well, sometimes that's how you learn.
Yeah, exactly. And one other thing, too, for people out there listening, Brenner, you sound like a young guy, so it doesn't necessarily apply to you as much, but I think guys can overdo it, too, and be carrying too much weight, and they go into the season actually injured or hurt. So this is something with carrying weight. Like if it's almost August 1st now. If you haven't carried a lot of weight, I think it's almost too late to start, throwing on 50, 60, 70, 80 pounds right now. I might be doing 20 and 30 and just trying to get your body a little bit conditioned. The last thing you want to do is go into it, starting the season fatigued, starting the season with any sorts of minor aches and pains and injuries. That's just my personal opinion. But what else you got, Brenner?
Okay, so as far as e-scouting goes, choosing what units to hunt, and then I guess finding, I guess where you're going to hunt. What are you looking for on Google Earth and on X Maps? Chris,
why don't you start with this one?
I was going to hope you start, because that's a giant. I mean, we could do it either way. That's a giant discussion. So go jump in, and then I'll dovetail with you.
So I think there's several resources out there. You mentioned Google Earth. You mentioned OnX Maps. When it comes to both of those resources, what I like to do is I like to go on and find the areas that I want to hunt on Google Earth. I like to outline them. I like to highlight any roads, any trails. Then I like to go and highlight any potential water sources. I like to highlight any potential, high points, or look for any rock piles or anything that I think would be a contour break where potentially could get out on some rocks and look across a canyon. I try and look for open areas. I try and look for meadows, and I try and mark them. So then once I have a Google Earth map, and you may have 4 or 5 areas in Colorado that you want to bounce around to, and that's fine. Once I have that built up in my Google Earth, then I like to easily transfer those over to my OnX Maps. So all my Google Earth scouting transfers over to my OnX Maps, and then when it's on my OnX Maps desktop, it automatically transfers to my OnX handheld to the app on my phone. As far as different units and areas, I think the Go Hunt Insider, I think there's some really good info there on different units, whether it be looking on the Insider and looking for areas of service, nearest gas station, nearest bow shops, nearest hotels, nearest, grocery stores, that kind of thing. I think also you can look at some of the success rates and draw odds and some of that stuff to get a feel. But then, part of e-scouting too is I think not necessarily e-scouting, but talking to people that have hunted in particular areas, calling Forest Service officers or people with the United States government in the BLM or in the forest or, Game and Fish, and talking to them about, hey, are there trailheads that, are super, super popular? Are there trailheads that are not as popular as others? Are there places where you, as a forest professional, know that a lot of people don't get into for one reason or another? And, talking to people that have been there in those particular areas, and you might find a guy that works for the Forest Service and, he says, man, I just never see people up in this basin, and I never know why they're not there, because I always see tons of elk when we're doing aerial surveys or, ground surveys or what have you, and all of a sudden you might find yourself, in a great spot. So I'm getting some feedback. I don't know, are you guys hearing it too? Like some wind noise?
Chris? Not on my end. Maybe it's me breathing in the phone. I don't know.
Okay. But, that's kind of what I would do when going to a new area. And then talking to locals, when you're in town at Walmart and you see guys in camo or you see people, don't be afraid to say, hey, I'm going up in such and such basin, and, oh yeah, I used to go up there all the time. And you never know, and just be friendly to people what kind of info, and a lot of people are going to tell you probably to piss off, but you never know when you run into a guy that's like, yeah, I don't archery elk hunt anymore, but I used to go I know this whole state, and all of a sudden you run into a lifelong resource that's willing to basically tell you everything he knows. So I wouldn't disregard that at all. Chris?
My thoughts are, if you, all of that Jay just said. The other thing I'll say is, if you are you okay? All right, do you guys know where you're going right now? Are you guys going essentially back to where you were last year? Okay, all right. So you've already picked where you're going to go. So, yeah, Go Hunt is nice. It's going to give you a lot of information in there. But if you've already settled on where you're going to go, then the next step for me is going to be kind of twofold. One, I'll recommend this. It's Hunt Data CD. I'm not affiliated with the company. I use their products every now and then. And a lot of basically what they do is they take a lot of mapping data, and then they take the information from the Colorado Division of Wildlife or Wyoming Parks and Wildlife or whatever, and they have the ability on their map that they'll put in where the traditional summer ranges are, where the traditional calving areas are, where the traditional winter ranges are. Now, the Division of Wildlife on Colorado Parks and Wildlife website, if you dig in there, you can find this information. Just the Hunt Data CD folks have put it in a format that it's stupidly simple. It can be on your phone, and it dovetails with Google Earth. They just did a great job with it. So Hunt Data CD. I'm going to go into my area wherever I want to explore hunting, and I'm going to pull up that, and I want to know where the summer range is, and I want to know where the calving areas are. Two reasons. One, as you move beginning of September, most of those bulls and those cows are going to be closer to their summer ranges. But as you move into September, all things being equal, a lot of times it's not uncommon to see those elk start making a move at least down towards some of that calving area, some of those calving areas, just because of the way the habitat is and the juxtaposition of food, water, and cover. Cows like to calve there because it's safe, but they also like to spend, oftentimes, they like to spend the fall there as well. So I'm going to look at those two things on the map, and then I'm going to start picking Google Earth apart. Now, the one thing that I will say with Google Earth, it's great to see openings. It's great to see tree cover. Two things with Google Earth. One, the elevation range that you specified, and I don't know if you're going to be hunting in places that have lodgepole pine or not, but if for anybody listening, if you're hunting in areas of lodgepole pine, one thing to always remember is if you see an opening in the forest canopy, and it's steep ground, don't necessarily think that that's a grassy meadow that the elk are going to want to feed in. It very well could be an opening of just what's called vaccinium or kinnikinnick, or, it's not really great forage. It's an opening, but it's not great forage. So for that elevation bracket that you listed, what I'm going to be focusing on with Google Earth is how many different types of habitat can I see in a given basin or a drainage. Am I seeing, dark green trees? Am I seeing beetle kill trees? Am I seeing light green trees, which might be more aspen? In Google Earth, if you go to the top, depending on what version you have, if you go to the top, a lot of times you're able to toggle through different dates on what imagery you're looking at. So you can literally go, you'll bring up the image, and maybe that image is from 2013, and it's from the summer. Okay. Well, if you toggle, you go up there and you find it's got that little time symbol on it. If you click on that, it opens up, and you'll see these hash marks where there's other imagery photos there. If you click on them, you may see some. Here's one from February. Here's one from March. Here's one from September. You can by doing that, you can choose different seasons on which that image was taken, and you can see what is deciduous trees like aspen versus pine versus where's the snow hitting versus, it gives you a much better picture of what's actually on that landscape. So I'm looking for maximum diversity of habitat. I want aspens, I want pines, I want open meadows, I want creek bottom areas, I want, as much as you can give me. I want maximum diversity, because more than likely, if I can find that maximum diversity and it's near those summer ranges and it's near those calving areas, bam, my odds of finding elk are going to be much, much higher.
Yes, sir. Well, that's really good stuff right there. Wow. All right. Well, as far as hunting elk in early September to mid to late September, where, as far as tactics go, how are y'all differing from early September to late September?
Well, I think starting out, I think our moon, I think is on the 13th or 14th the full moon is on the 13th or 14th of September this year. Yes, to me, that that definitely plays a part in it. I think Chris is going to tell you, Chris, you've been hunting OTC Colorado for 20 years, 25 years in a row. How long have you been hunting OTC Colorado?
95. So what is that?
95, so
23 years. 23 years.
Okay. So Chris is going to be able to shed some light on the timing of the bugling and what have you, and can probably speak to the tactics really well. I think, from my perspective, early in September, Brenner, you're going to have bulls, lots of bulls, kind of young bulls still with cows. You'll have bigger bulls, maybe not with the cows yet. You might have, mature bull with a group of cows, and then you have 3 or 4 or 5 young bulls with a group of cows. You might even have some bulls on their own where they're not even with cows yet. So I think Chris can talk about some calling strategies and tactics. But I would ask, are you going into this if you can harvest a bull, it's a successful hunt, any bull? Is that your goal, Brenner?
Yes, sir. Yeah, my goal is to harvest a bull within 23 days. That is the goal. Now, that's not going to make the hunt successful or not. And that's the goal. But just going out there, being out there, and learning.
But in other words, if you get a legal bull in front of you in bow range, you're going to kill it, and you're going to be tickled pink, and that will be ultimate success would be having a great time, but also harvesting a bull, correct?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Okay, so, the elevation that you chose, you're going to be kind of flirting with right there at above timberline. You said you might get to some 11,000-foot stuff, but it sounds like for the most part you're going to be hunting kind of under the timberline. And so I would say that, from my personal opinion, if you can go early and if there's places in the country that you hunted where you can glass a little bit and kind of observe for a few days and try and figure out, okay, what are the elk doing? Okay, where are the elk at? Okay, what kind of behavior are they exhibiting? Do they seem to be nosing around with cows? Do they seem to be bugling? Am I hearing any bugling? If it were me, I would try and have some areas where you can look across those canyons. A lot of times you hike up on one side and can look across the other. And a lot of times in Colorado at the elevation you mentioned, sometimes there's not a ton of glassing. But if there is, and if you can think of spots where you were last year and say, man, if I could get up on that point and spend, pitch your tent fairly close and spend a day or two and just try and get an eyeball, just try and get a sense of what's going on, I think that will help you in your plan of attack as to, your calling strategy. I think as the month wears on and the rut intensifies, I think you'll have a lot better chance of, blind hiking up into basins, doing a little calling or listening, and then trying to pursue bulls. I think the early season is when you might want to be looking around a little bit and saying, man, the last 2 mornings I've seen elk in that particular little meadow. Then you would try and position yourself over there in that country, and because you've already observed them over there. Chris, I'll let you take the floor.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have the ability to glass, then absolutely. And you said you were going to get out there on the 30th, so you're getting there right before the season starts. So it doesn't sound like there's much time for you just to spend a couple days before the season starts. Based on that elevation, Jay's right. You might have some situations where you can glass, but you may not. I mean, if it's in timber and if it's just cover, then do the same thing that he's talked about, but maybe you just get yourself up on some listening points and just listen, because this year, because the season's starting so late this year, you very well may end up getting in a situation where they're bugling on opening day. And the thing is that makes this difficult, not knowing where you're going and not knowing what the hunting pressure that your area gets. This year, opening weekend, is it Labor Day? It's Labor Day weekend too, isn't it? Isn't Labor Day weekend opening weekend? Because it's.
I'm not even sure. I thought it was the last couple days of August.
Well, it starts on August 31st this year.
Yes, sir.
It starts on August 31st. So
Brenner,
September.
Brenner,
so Monday.
Maybe you can tell Chris. Maybe just real fast, you can tell Chris, if you kind of know the country you're going, what type of country is it, and then maybe Chris can pinpoint and hone in on exactly some things you need to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's southern Colorado. It's southern Colorado. I mean,
okay.
Like, what type of country is it? Is it oak brush? Is it tell them a little bit about the terrain, not where you're hunting, just tell them, what it looks like.
It's nasty country. I'll be honest. There is some, you can get up high at some points. You kind of see down in some meadows, but and then there's some aspens mixed out up kind of in the higher country. But it's nothing. And it's thick. It's nasty. And so glassing is very, very.
Okay.
I don't know. I guess limited.
Okay. Yeah, limited. Okay. Exactly, limited. So, not knowing what the hunter pressure looks like, it sounds. My guess is this year. Now, I'm the guy that I love going the first. I like going the first week or 2 weeks of season because I do like catching the bulls before they get locked down with all their cows per se. But this year, since season starts so late, we're probably going to end up being in a situation where a lot of those bulls have already made that pre-rut move and they've already made a big move towards those cow-calf groups. And if you're in that elevation range anyway, now it's going to be in my opinion, it's going to be very key on, do you know where the summer range is? Is there a defined summer range, and do you know where it is? Or are they just scattered across that whole thing? Because if they're scattered across the whole thing, at that point, it's just boot leather on the ground, picking apart, terrain, and in that type of habitat, if it's that thick, then I'm going to either get myself to places where I can listen, or as I'm moving through, I'm going to be paying attention to trails. What sign am I seeing? what do the wallows look like? If I find wallows, is it a wallow out in the meadow? Is it beat up like crazy, or is it just doesn't look like it's being hit that much? Or am I finding little wallows deep in the timber that look like they're just thrashed and destroyed? Okay, well, maybe I kind of slow down and pick that apart, because there's some places, if it gets heavily hunted and there's a lot of hunter pressure in that area, it almost doesn't even matter what time of the season we're dealing with. They're going to be tight-lipped and they're not going to want to stay much. So at that point, you're just going to really want to focus on what sign you're seeing. Is it fresh? Is it consistent or not? You know what I mean? If you're going through there and if you've already hunted this area and you know where some of the bedding areas are, if you already know where some of the wallows are, maybe that first weekend you just smoke in there and you just run and gun across the landscape, checking area, hunting as you're going, but checking those key areas that you found before, and then use the information you used from that you gathered from last season to just kind of focus where your initial efforts are. I think, Jay, one of the next, or one of your other questions was about calling, and this leads into it. I love to call. I flat out love to call, and so you can be, if you know what you're doing and you use strategic, purposeful calling, you absolutely can call in elk on opening weekend. And if I were you in that type of terrain and elevation, habitat stuff, oh yeah, I'm going to be hiking that. I'm going to be getting myself in there. I'm going to be going to the likely places where I think either the elk are feeding or where they're bedding. I'm going to get in there. I'm going to be listening. I'm going to be calling. I'm going to see, and I'm just going to cover ground until I either get some responses, and I know the elk are there that want to play, or I run myself into where there's a lot of sign, and I know, okay, the elk are here. I just need to slow down and start picking it apart.
Yes, sir. Yeah, for sure. That's good stuff. So as far as the rainfall from this year versus 2018, is elk behavior going to be a lot different? Since I guess it was more of a dry season last year, and this year it looks like there's going to be a lot more water. As far as elk behavior goes, what are going to be some of the differences?
Go ahead, Chris.
Well, I laugh, but yeah, go listen to the third podcast on the website, because that's what I just talked about. Yeah, no, it has the potential. But with that being said, I think based on the elevation bracket that you just outlined, I don't think you are going to see the differences that maybe some other, if you're hunting in serious high country, alpine, tree line type scenarios, yes, I think you've got to really pay attention. But I think from the elevation bracket that you have, I don't think you're going to see much of an issue other than the fact that there's going to be grass and water everywhere, which means there's going to be elk. Elk have the ability to scatter themselves everywhere. So
yeah, and that was one thing I was going to add, Chris, is, I've been hiking here in the Roaring Fork Valley here for the last, 2.5, 3 months, and most of my hiking, I start at 8,000 and I go to 11,000. I mean, I'm hiking in the exact zone, if you will, that Brenner's talking about hunting, and I can tell you early on it was still cold and it didn't green up very fast. But in the last 30 days, I mean, it just looks like a tropical jungle. Now, I will tell you that our rains this summer have not been that great, to be honest with you, but we had so much moisture in the winter and spring. Aspen Mountain was open to skiing into the first week of June. It was still cold. And the Ot6 Ranch, I will tell you, got a lot of it's more in southern Colorado, and it got a lot of moisture, got a lot of snow, but until the last couple of days, it has hardly rained over there. The higher country, the 9 to 10.5 country there at the Ot6 Ranch looks great, but the lower country looks rough. So as wet as it was in the winter and spring, I think we've had, the opposite of a fairly dry summer so far. The monsoons, coming down from northern Mexico and Arizona, the last few days have kind of struck up, but, they got a late start. So I don't know if that helps you at all, Brenner, but Chris is right. In that 10,000 foot, the weeds and the grass and it just looks like a jungle. So, last year, we got some pretty good summer rains, so I'm betting that it's going to have a real similar look. So as far as behavior, Chris can talk about that.
But yeah, and one thing just to dovetail, Jay, what you just said is, and that's kind of where I was going to go, is without these rains, right now, you can, because there's feed everywhere, and you've got snow melt still, some moisture still coming off of the high country, you might have these little creeks and little runoff areas that are still going, and it's providing water in places where water may not linger if it really turns hot and dry. Meaning, if folks got out there and scouted now, and they're seeing elk all over the place, and there's these little rivulets, little streams coming off the mountain, just understand, if it stays, these monsoons are running late. If it stays dry through August, a lot of those little creeks are going to start drying up, and those elk will move. So that's the other thing you're going to have to pay attention to, given the fact that you're going to be there, across, 3 weeks. If you haven't filled your tag early, just pay attention to what your water is doing. If it starts drying up in other places, those elk are going to go somewhere else, so you need to be able to adapt and move with them. From a behavior standpoint, I don't think we have, I don't know your elk population down there, but all things considered, I have a feeling we've got, I talk about that rethinking the rut discussion, and this year all the cows should be running, healthy body weight to where they should be able to cycle in on time. The question is whether or not there's conditions that might actually encourage some of those cows to cycle in to estrus early. But again, you're going early season. You're going to be there for 3 weeks. You've got such a wide open window. You're going to catch some good activity somewhere in that window. All right. So if you were saying I'm only going to spend 1 week, well, then it may be a little bit different. But since you're going to be there for 3 weeks, you've got flexibility to play and explore. And if things start rocking and rolling early, great. Make hay while the sun's shining. But if it just kind of lingers and the elk aren't there early, but you know the terrain, you know the area, you know the elk are going to get there, just have some patience, sit, listen, play the long game, and if it happens the second week or happens the third week, great. But just keep an eye on the conditions and where the water is going and where the best feed is going, because the elk are going to end up following that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, okay. As far as, elk hunting mistakes, I guess really for the newbies, and I'm everyone's gonna make mistakes, but as far as like some of the top mistakes y'all are seeing new hunters make, what are those?
I'll start with that. Mistakes that hunters make, I think, are not being patient enough. I think they end up charging right into the middle of a situation and not really thinking it through, and not having, Chris talks about having a strategic calling plan, having a plan. I think a lot of new hunters just kind of charge in, fix bayonets, and then they get in there and they don't really have a plan. That's one thing, not having enough patience to kind of let things. Sometimes you need to let an elk get in an area or a bull get in an area where you can actually work with them. And then, another mistake is I don't think new elk hunters realize how much of an importance the wind plays and how they need to structure their plan for the day around the wind and, what the wind will be doing. And I think a lot of times in some of these high basins and such in Colorado, it doesn't take very long for you to muck that whole area up, and then you literally will have to move and switch areas. The other thing is I don't think a lot of new hunters take into account where other people that don't really know what they're doing are going to be, and also kind of muck up their hunting situation. And then, I think another mistake is people having expectations that are not realistic. It sounds like, Brenner, you went out last year. It sounds like you learned a lot. Sounds like you might have a little bit got it handed to you a bit, which is great. I know it probably sucked at the time, but you're going to be that much more ahead going into this season. So taking those things that you learned and being able to capitalize on, not making the mistakes that you made last year, I think is huge, but also figuring out kind of where people are going to come from, how they're going to plan and attack those elk as well, how you can use that to your benefit. Those are ones that just jump off at the top of my head. Chris, why don't you nail some down here?
The ones that everything that you just said, and I'll add two. One is a shameless plug. Again, if you want it, my opinion, I think a lot of new hunters get caught up in what they see on YouTube and Full Draw Film Tour and TV, and everybody wants the sexy elk hunt where the bull is screaming at them and they're blowing a bugle and screaming at them. And okay, a lot of young hunters and newer hunters jump in on really aggressive style calling tactics, in my opinion, way too soon, without understanding what they're doing, why they're doing it, and the effects that it's going to have. And so, inadvertently, you put the elk on alert and on standby, and then after that, you're just fighting it. And it's not only just the hunters themselves, but all the other hunters that are out there as well. So, my opinion, I love to call, but I always start low key and build up in my intensity and aggressiveness level, if you want to call it that. It just gives you room to play, and it just, I think if you jump in on an aggressive strategy too soon, you can end up setting yourself up for failure. Number one. Number two is I see a lot of folks just not letting your calling setup work. I've got on the strategies and action section in the elk module, I've got videos in there that are an hour long, and the reason why I left them being an hour long is because it literally took an hour for that elk to. He was there, I was calling, I knew he was interested. It just took him an hour to finally work his way in. However, if I had just gotten up and charged in, like Jay was saying, if I just got move, he's going to nail me. He's standing there watching. He's going to nail you. And a lot of people, I think, don't let the setups work. If you're in a good spot, you've got a good setup. The wind is in your favor. The elk are there. They're responding and they're showing interest. And you are calling appropriately. Just have patience and let it work. It may be 30 minutes. It may be 45 minutes. It may be an hour. Just let them work. Use that stuff to your advantage. If you have the wind in your favor, if they're showing interest, you're in a good spot, don't feel the need to rush, especially you. You've got 3 weeks. You could fart around for 10 days and then finally get serious if you wanted to. So don't rush it. Let it unfold, especially if you're in a heavily hunted area where the elk are going to be on edge anyway. They might want to come in silent. So let them. Just don't blow them out of there.
Yeah, and Brenner, another thing I would add to that is I think it just takes some bulls coming in for people to realize they're always always going to come in on the downwind side of the call that you've made. So, and I say always, the one time they're not, you're like, Jay's an idiot, that thing just came straight to me. But 99.9% of the time, the noise that they hear, they are going to swing on the downwind side of that, because they're going to want to, Chris has a great catchphrase, and I'll let him talk about it, but they're always going to come into that call with, most of the time, with caution, and they're going to be swinging, trying to smell the sound that they heard. In other words, you're making the sound that you can predict. If the wind is blowing from your left to your right, you can predict 99.9% of the time they're going to come in on the right side. They're going to come on the downwind side of that call. Chris, explain to them why they're going to do that.
Well, I agree, and I'll agree and disagree for a little bit. If you're just using general calling and you're just throwing stuff out there, number one, absolutely that's going to happen. If you start using bugles, almost always, especially if you start using more aggressive sounding bugle, absolutely they're going to do that. It's just in their best interest. If an animal's responding, if it sounds attractive, but something isn't just quite clicking correctly, it's just not quite right, then I talk about the see you first, hear you second, smell you third. From a communication standpoint, smell is what the last thing that they're going to use. From a safety standpoint, it's going to be the first. So if they are on edge, if they think something's not right, oh, absolutely. You better be making sure that you're covering that downwind side. Now, the other thing I guess we didn't clarify, are you hunting by yourself, or are you going to be out there with your buddy?
I'll be out there by myself for a couple days, and then I got buddies that'll be coming in and out. So I'll be hunting both ways.
Okay, so if you're calling and if you're solo hunting, then yeah, you need to be definitely make sure that you're covering that downwind side. However, I would say if you understand what you're saying, how you're saying it, and why you're saying it, as far as your calling strategies, I show it all the time. I can put them right straight smack dab in front of me, because if you call in a manner that absolutely makes sense, you're saying the right things at the right time in the right cadence, they don't have any reason to suspect anything is wrong, especially if you're low key. If you're being aggressive, that's a different story. But if you're being low key, if I'm like, for instance, I talk about a targeted strategy all the time. If I'm going to use lost muse and assembly muse, that is me talking to that one animal, and if I hit heavy on the assembly muse, that's just a single cow saying, I want you to come to me. Well, there's absolutely no reason in the world why that bull would think anything else other than to go, okay, well, I'm just going to come straight to you if he's relaxed and calm and you've done your part. But that's where, again, hunting public ground, you don't know what anybody else has been in there. So if you're in there running an aggressive strategy, or you're just throwing cow calls out there just to see what sticks, that's going to raise, you might get some animals interested in moving your way, but that's when they want to be cautious. That's when they're going to start swinging around downwind of you. So it all depends on how good of a caller. Now, let's just put it. Let me rephrase that. How knowledgeable of a caller. There's a lot of good callers out there that are not very knowledgeable.
Yes, sir.
And I think you can be very knowledgeable in your calling and really not even blow a call that well and still be extremely effective. So it depends on how knowledgeable of a caller you are, and getting your setups right, and calling strategically, and calling with a purpose. Start low key, build up. I think you can avoid having those bulls swing around downwind, but you always anticipate it. It's one of those plan B things where I'm going to set up to where he's going to come straight in on me, but if he doesn't and he wants to swing downwind, he's still going to eat an arrow.
Yeah, I was going to tell you, Brenner, as a general rule of thumb, this is my opinion, don't ever call downwind. Always project your call into the wind and bet that animal is more than likely going to come downwind, but be prepared if he comes straight at you. If you call and project your sound downwind, that's going to put them even further from you if they're trying to use a little bit of a buffer, 20, 30, 40 yards, to kind of get around that sound. if you're calling downwind, that's going to put them at 80 or 90 or 100 yards away. I like to call into the wind and let them swing on that sound, and it ends up swinging them pretty close, where I end up having a good encounter at close distance.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. Well, one last question. My computer actually just died. But one last question is, what determines success for you in the backcountry? Is it punching a time card, or is it more kind of what determines success for y'all?
For me, I think it's individual. Everybody has their own reason for being out there, but for me, it's always it would be on any hunt, learning something, trying to enjoy myself, and not get too caught up in being, as intense and what have you as I am. The older I get, the more I try and tell myself to just enjoy it and have fun and be able to learn something and take something away from the hunt, rather than when I was younger. It seemed like it was all about results, and the older I get, the more I realize that there's a lot more in life than results. Even though I still want to be successful in everything I do, there's kind of a higher purpose in you being out there and enjoying, elk hunting or whatever hunt that you're going to be on.
Absolutely.
Chris?
Yeah. For me, and Jay's right. Everybody's different, and quite honestly, everybody's different, and it's individual and it's personal. So I wouldn't even worry about comparing. Don't ever feel that you need to compare yourself with someone else. Who cares? You're out there as an individual doing your own thing. But for me, it's the game. Did I get to play the game? Like I said, I love to call. Have I sat water holes? Have I sat wallows and for ambush? I have. Yeah, absolutely. Because I do want to try to fill a tag. However, when in doubt, and Jay can confirm this one. Yeah, I'm not the guy that sits up on the hill in glasses. I hate doing that. I'd rather be down in there mixing it up and calling and trying to make it happen. So, for me, I don't care I want to fill a tag. Everybody does. But even if I don't fill a tag, if I've been able to go out there and play the game, the chess match, can I get an elk? Can I find the elk? Can I call to them? Can I get them to do what I want them to do? Can I call them in? If I've got some good call-ins, I've had some good interactions, and I've been able to mentally play that game, that chess match, that to me is a good season. I can think back on some seasons where maybe I did not fill my tag, or at the end of my designated hunt, I shot a younger age class bull or whatever to put some meat in the freezer. I can look back on them and be like, man, that was an awesome hunt because I had those engagements. However, there's some other times as well where I filled the freezer, but it was just, it was a long drag out season, and literally the last day that I was there was the first opportunity at getting a bull, and bam, bam, done. Yeah, it was successful. It was a fun hunt, but I still look back on it and I'm like, man, it was just a long grind, and I didn't get to play the game as much as I'd wanted to. So that's what it is for me. I just enjoy that mental, that cerebral interaction between the animal and me, and can I get them to do what I want them to do?
Yes. Hey, Brenner, let me shotgun a few, if you have a few more minutes, let me shotgun you a few ideas, and Chris, feel free to chime in where you may. Do you have a few minutes, Brenner?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Just some things, the random thoughts that are coming to my head. When you get set up and you're working on an elk, and you've got an elk that you think, a bull that is coming in, don't get yourself sandwiched in behind a bunch of brush. I would rather see you get set up in front of a clump of brush. Let your camo do the work for you. Stay still. Kind of tilt your head down so, your face isn't shining. Tilt the brim of your hat kind of down, and get in front of something. I see too many people, they get in a setup and they start calling, and they're locked in so much brush, and they have so much brush in front of them. Even if a bull comes out in that doorway, which Chris talks about all the time, you can't shoot that. So You've got to pick those areas where you're going to call those elk, and a lot of times that puts me being in front of a tree or in front of some brush and let my camo do the work for me. Don't move a whole lot. When they're coming in, if you stay really still and don't move, they will literally walk right by you. And I think a lot of people, it takes them a bunch of encounters to realize that, and they get so slammed up in some brush that they can't even draw their bow anyway. So before you even start calling, you've got to pick those strategic areas that Chris talks about with the doorway, where those elk are going to come and they're going to stop in that spot. Make sure you can shoot that spot before you even start calling. That's number one. Number two, when you start calling to an elk, there's always that time when you think, golly, is he coming? Did he lose interest? Should I move towards him? I would highly encourage you to fight the urge to move towards them once you've began a calling sequence. Most of the time, especially on public land, they are going to be coming in with pretty much all of their senses on alert. So if you decide after 5 minutes of calling that he's not coming, I can't tell you how many times that I've walked straight into elk because I've been impatient. So those two things right there. And then when it comes down to the ultimate moment of truth where you're going to, you've got a bull approaching, he's bugling, or maybe he's coming in silent, you hear him coming, make sure you're taking good deep breaths, make sure you're walking yourself through your checklist of how you're going to draw your bow, when you're going to draw your bow, how you're going to control your nerves and pick your spot, where you're going to aim, and then ultimately making sure that you're not releasing that arrow unless everything is right. And then once everything is right, you're all systems on go, you release your arrow, and then immediately, depending on, where your arrow hit, you immediately want to really focus on, where did I hit that bull? What is the bull doing? How good did I hit him? Do I need to follow up and make a second shot? A side note to a second shot, my opinion is, if he's standing there and you have the ability to quietly knock an arrow, shoot that bull anywhere you can possibly shoot him if you know you've already hit him. Chris may disagree. My opinion is, if you get second and third and fourth and fifth shots, you keep shooting. If you know you've hit a bull and he's standing there with his butt to you, I say shoot it right up under his tail, and you just keep shooting until the bull's down. Yes, and then talk about when you release your arrow, unless you see the bull fall yourself, where you see the bull, he wobbles, he goes down, I say you don't do anything for 30 minutes no matter what. Even if you heard him crash just out of sight, you do not even go check for blood. You don't go find your arrow. You literally sit there and you give him 30 minutes minimum. Do not even move. Let that bull expire. Unless you see him, in eyesight, dead, head down, he's for sure dead, give it a minimum of 30 minutes. Chris, shotgun him. Any other additional ideas, related or unrelated?
Well, no, I think what you hit on, one of the first things you said there was about your setups. I can't tell you. You need to watch it. You watch the videos I've got. A lot of times in those strategies and action videos, I'm walking through the timber and I just set up. There might not even be a tree around me. Not even around me. And I'll have elk walking in 7, 10, 14 steps. They're right. If you just let your camo, if you stay still, let your camo work. I am of the opinion, yes, always set up in front of something, let your camo work, but I like standing. There's a lot of people that want to get down on their knees.
Great point. Great point.
The only thing I don't like about getting down on your knees is you can't move more than just what you can move around with your waist. And if you try to swing, you've got to swing your feet way around, and there's a lot more movement, a lot more noise. If you stand, you can rotate a lot more around your center axis without even having to move in your feet. But if you do move your feet, all you have to do is just move a little tiny bit, and it doesn't make a lot of movement, and it doesn't make a lot of noise. So a lot of people just want to get down on their knees to shoot. I am not that way. And quite honestly, you get down on your knees to shoot, oftentimes you end up more crap is in the way that you need to shoot through. So, I don't know. I like standing. But yeah, I mean, all those.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. That's great.
And to add to that, Chris, one of the benefits about standing is, Brenner, you're a predator. So we all talk about standing still and being quiet and being still and doing all of that when an elk is coming in. There are times, and Chris can attest to this, there are times when a bull's coming in and he's behind some blue spruce or something where you know he's going to take 3 or 4 steps and he's not going to be able to see you, and you have to move, sidestep 1 or 2 steps or move forward or move backwards, and you know that the time is right and you have to do it and it's do or die. If you're standing, you can take 2 or 3 steps in those moments when you know if that sucker comes out from behind that tree, I move 2 steps, I'm at full draw, and the bull is dead. So as much as I tell people be very, very still, you're there to kill. So if you know you have to move, and a step or 2 or 4 or 5, and you're the one that it's your tag, and so you have to take the chance that getting into that other position is going to be much better. Now, I've seen people second-guessing themselves, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when you know the direction he's coming, you can see where he's coming, and there's going to be a bunch of oak brush, and he's in plain view right now, but he's about to go behind, and if you can sidestep a half a step and draw your bow and be ready when he comes out, you have to have that predator instinct to be like, I'm going to kill you, sucker, and be willing to literally risk it all for a 1 sidestep and be at full draw when he steps out. Chris, do you agree with that?
Oh yeah, and that's the thing. It allows you to stay much more mobile and fluid and just absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and that's the thing, is you can do that at full draw. I mean, you can come to full draw and just take 1 step, whack. You know what I mean? People get themselves locked in, like what you said about being behind the brush or tucked into brush. Obviously, if you're sitting in a water hole, we see this down in Arizona all the time. I mean, if you're sitting in a water hole, okay, then you're going to want to be brushed in because they're going to be coming in. And the same thing goes with a wallow. If you're going to hunt a wallow, I would argue don't get set up right smack dab on that wallow standing there, because they're going to come in and most likely they're going to visually inspect the scenario around that wallow to make sure it's safe. They're going to know oftentimes that, hey, wait a minute, I don't remember seeing that thing standing, So if you're going to hunt a wallow, stand off to the side of it, but I digress. If you're going to be hunting, if you want to get yourself brushed in on a water hole or whatever, yes, brush yourself in. Leave yourself plenty of room. But if you're running and gunning, no. Step in front of it, let your camo work, and stay standing and stay, And the other thing, too, is I talk about all the time, I hide behind my bow. I'll just have, if that bull's coming, I'll have the arrow nocks release on the string, my bow, and almost my hand. I'll have the bow in front of my face, almost my hand in front of my face, hiding behind that bow, so to speak, so when I have to draw, all I have to do is just a smooth push-pull. The bow goes straight away from my face, my arm goes straight back, and there's very little movement that animal is going to see. You'll see some guys, they'll start the draw cycle from down low, they'll go up high, they do all these gyrations to get their bow back. You want to be able to pull that bow back nice and smooth. I stand, point that arrow at where that bull's coming from, so all I have to do is just push-pull straight back. That animal doesn't have a clue in the world that it's about to just eat it.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Well, that's
do you have any other questions?
Well, yeah, I could ask you dozens more questions, but I mean that's That's a good.
Any that are
All
super
those are
important that you need to get out?
No, sir, not really. I mean, like I said, I think I covered all the main ones I really wanted to talk about, and y'all did a great heck of a job answering all of them in great detail as well. So yeah, I'm super stoked to get out there in the field this year and give it another try. I got a lot longer. Like I said, I'll be out there for 3 weeks this September. So
right on, buddy. Well, keep us posted on how it goes, and I appreciate you reaching out on Instagram. Encourage any of the other listeners out there, if you have any questions in regards to any hunts coming up, I'm happy to do question and answer with you on those. And Chris, as always, appreciate bringing you in here and getting your wealth of knowledge. And like I said, I'm excited about some of the podcast, 3 episodes being uploaded into the Elk module. Chris, want to give you a chance to let listeners know how they can reach you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. No, it's always fun coming on here and chatting with you. But no, if folks want to see some of my stuff and learn about it a little bit more, it's Roe Hunting Resources, ROE Hunting Resources, anywhere. That's Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, or the website. There, it's all the same, Roe Hunting Resources. But on the website, yeah, we're adding a whole bunch of new stuff to it. So, yeah, if you want to understand behavior, vocalizations, communication, and how all that interplays and how to be a more efficient caller, and I think hunter, then that's a great resource for you on the Elk module. And, yeah, Jay, I mean, we always do for you guys. Yeah, if they type in that, you know, the new subscribers, just type in that Jay Scott podcast, all one word, and when they're checking out on it, it knocks 20% off. So it's a good deal.
Right on. Well, Brenner, hopefully you'll send us a picture with all your success this coming season, and I appreciate you following along and reaching out to us. Chris, appreciate you coming on. God bless you both, guys. Take care, okay?
All right, brother. Thanks for having me again.